welcome, my wonderful guests. I'm so happy that you are here, that we set up everything, that it looks even beautiful. And we are starting our hardcore solo self-found podcast. Once again, we have here absolutely the best players possible. We have surprisingly 3 rogues, 1 necromancer and 1 druid. Yes. Guys, I will remind again, Woody, rank 1 solo self-found player pre-season hardcore. Guys, you all know that's ridiculous. But this season, in season 1, Woody died due to disconnect. It's not fair, but he died at level 93. We have here also Chronix, also rogue player, our wonderful content creator, who also died also on rogue due to disconnect at level 87. And he was at that point, welcome guys, your brothers here. And he was at that point rank 6 on the leaderboard, if not 5, guys. It was a little bit all weird at that point. We have here also Echo Hack, who is rank 2. He didn't disconnect. Yikes!
Paid his power bill.
He defeated the boss. He's the disconnect boss, and he's rank 2 on a necromancer, rank 1 on a necromancer, on rank 2 in a solo self-found hardcore leaderboard. Damn it, I learned how to pronounce it. And we have Rax, who he withdrew himself from the race. He was anyway the top everything, and yesterday also he didn't disconnect it, thank God, and he reached yesterday level 100. Who on rogue, also on rogue. Here we go. Beautiful guests. We have today a bunch of weird things to discuss. I will be today asking you the questions about hardcore solo self-found because, guys, I'm Anna. I am not playing hardcore, but today I will be doing the notes and I will be deciding, should I start in season 2? Should I start hardcore or not? Yeah, that's great. And also, sorry guys, one last note. I will be asking the questions. I will be addressing them, one of you, but this doesn't mean absolutely anything. Everyone can answer. It's just like, for the flow of the podcast, I will be addressing it, one of you, and then absolutely everyone can jump in and say whatever the hell you want to say. So, my first question was going actually to Woody, but Woody is busy, so then we are jumping a little bit. We already changing everything, but we are jumping then to Echo. How do you feel? How this race went for you? How you were predicting how long it's going to take? Pretty much, definitely before it actually started, you were predicting how long it's going to take, how long it took for you, and was it how you expected? Was it longer? Was it better? Was it how?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So it definitely wasn't how I expected at all. I was kind of approaching the race, for me, semi-casually. I wasn't expecting to try to go for one or anything like that. And had no expectations about Necromancer. The joke we use all the time is moving at the speed of Necromancer. So I knew that movement speed would be a big problem going into it. But I had heard that Rax dropped out. I heard that Woody died, and when that happened, I realized that I was kind of carrying the torch for the Maxwell team, and so I decided at that moment to just not sleep and just go as hard as I could and try to get as high of a rank that I could. And I was very surprised that actually I ended up getting to where I went to. So I was able to finish Sunday, I believe, around 1:30 in the afternoon. So it was Thursday, Fridays. Yeah, it was almost 3 days. Almost 3 days.
Let's say around 70 hours.
There is a way that you can see your actual time played in the game. All you have to do is let your hardcore character die, and then you can see in the Hall of Heroes how much time you've played that character.
Amazing. That's how we do it. Guys, how is it for you? Like how, the time wise, that's what you were expecting in terms of the hardcore solo self-found race. Was it longer? Took it actually longer? Till the death at least.
I mean, for me, I think it was about what I expected. The thing that surprised me about the race is the wall, like the Great Wall of China that you hit when you get to level 50. Like I cannot believe how slow I started to level from 50 to 60, and there were people watching me race, and I could feel like it wasn't even my morale, the morale of everybody watching me going from crawling from 50 to 51 and 51 to 52. They were like, is this what this has become? I'm like, I don't know, maybe I have the worst strategy ever, but according to the leaderboards, I didn't. I was blasting, and I'm like, wow. I was like, this is going to be rough. But then, of course, when you get into World Tier 4, you get the extra XP, you get your full build, you get the Paragon, and then you start blasting. You even open up like additional Nightmare Dungeon keys. I wasn't getting a lot of the S tier Nightmare Dungeon keys in World Tier 3. Once they started dropping, it's like, okay, this is a little bit more manageable. But I guess that was the part that surprised me. It was like the 50 to 70 range, making like building up your character was like crawling.
I didn't really have that impression, to be honest. Like, in general, the leveling felt really fast to me. And it was just like the slow start to the Renown. Like, I did all the Renown that I guess most others skipped in a race. But for me, like, after I was done with that, I was just like completely like blasting through everything. And it felt like just a really nice, smooth progression to me, honestly. That was like, well, until 93, I guess. When I was like, I was like something like 8 hours away from the finish line, basically, or so I calculated. So I was just like, okay, at that point, I was like level 90 or so. I had to make the decision: do I sleep now, or do I just go through and finish it? And I was like, I can probably just finish it, and just kept blasting. But yeah, I was not ready to sleep at that time when it happened. I was really sad, actually. I was like, okay, by the time that breakfast comes around, I can like finish here and I'm good. But yeah, unlucky.
But the second race for you was, I believe, was way faster. That's why you felt so fast.
Yeah, it was very faster. In the launch, like you can notice the impact of the XP changes they have made and all that stuff over time. So I estimate that we're like something like 30% faster. Like it's basically like a full day less of like this race, right? Like the first race was like 4 days flat, basically, right? Like when I did the first 1 to 100 on launch, it was like exactly 4 days because I finished it like 15 minutes before early access ended. And now it was like, yeah, it was like 3 or something if you count it all together, or less. Yeah. So yeah,
around 70, a little bit faster maybe.
Yeah, I was actually calculating a lot in how much time we would actually need to be able to plan when and how long I'm going to sleep, be able to divide it into like equal parts. And I was very much around thinking that it would be like 60 hours, but I wasn't really calculating with Woody's speed. He would have done it in like 55. So that was quite good right there. So I thought I would need like 60, 65, 60, something around that. And I think that's pretty spot on where I would have landed when I would have been a bit more lucky, I guess, with the internet.
Gronings, then I have, I will drop you also the next question. Guys, this is anyway insane. 60 hours pushing there, yeah. Okay. But what is the ultimate, can you tell us, for solo self-found, hardcore push, what is the ultimate strategy for Rogue? Have you ever even touched Hell Tide? Have you went to the doing Renown, or all of this is forgotten, only blasting Nightmare Dungeons? And by the way, also, extra question with the star. Something changed after the Nightmare Dungeons, because during this race, the one more patch was released with the changes for the Nightmare Dungeons, but somehow it's affected actually the leveling process.
That one was for me, right, Anna?
Yeah. No, again, guys, everyone can jump in.
And
but just
first, basically. Well, so the first part was how it was basically the idea that I had was to um, skip Renown completely and only go to like 3 out of 5. But I had Fractured Peaks almost completed. I was almost at 5 out of 5, so I decided to go for 5 out of 5 in Fractured Peaks. That was not really planned, but it ended up being like this. And then I was watching all the other guys already being in Nightmare Dungeons at around um yeah, when you basically reach World Tier 3. And then I decided to basically ditch that. I had Fractured Peaks done with 5 out of 5, but that was a very wrong decision because I was falling behind by the minute. Everybody was like overtaking me because Nightmare Dungeons were just such an extreme boost. And the Nightmare Dungeon changes came pretty late. So, but they only affect like tier 50 and upwards. And that probably would only affect you when you're at like 98 or maybe like 97. And then you would probably dip your toes into 50 range. And then only then, I think there was like a 2% health uh, basically decrease and a 1% damage decrease, if I remember correctly. So that change didn't really affect the pushing strategy that much. I was actually hoping for a density change, but that is obviously going to come later this week. That would have definitely shaken up things a little bit more. And Helltides, I actually saw EchoHack doing Helltide once, and I was like, wait, why does he do that? And then I saw him opening a chest, and out popped 6 elixirs, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then I ran one Helltide to get a little bit of elixirs to get the 1.6% additive experience to make it a little bit faster, because the Forgotten Souls change with salvaging your weapons was actually rendered Helltides actually completely useless for the race, at least for me.
Yeah, I didn't know about this actually, this Forgotten Souls change until later, which is why I ran like, I think I ran half of a Helltide. I ran in, I got the chest, and I was like, oh, this is bad and slow, and then just left. But yeah, I think you're right. The patch in the middle didn't really affect the race too much. I did actually hop on an alt and get like Renown on an alt during that time, just in case there was like a magic disconnect during the like maintenance period. Because I was concerned about like losing a character during maintenance. So I actually had that happen to me like previously, so I didn't want that to happen again. So I completed like 4 dungeons in Skosglen, and then by that time they had updated the forum post and just swapped back. But if anything, the patch like slowed me down.
Yeah, for me it was like, yeah, the patch. Actually, this is when I decided to shut down my first stream. Like we watched the campfire. Like I went from like this launch to the campfire in one go, and then they decided they announced that they're gonna like have a hotfix, like arrive the campfire or something, or like a few hours later that would potentially make the Nightmare Dungeons easier. And I was like, oh man, I've been streaming for like 26 hours. Like now is the time to stop, because if they actually make it easier and faster to level from that point, I need to be rested after that. So I immediately shut down my stream, even though I was ready to go for like another, like, I don't know, like 10 hours or something. I was like, okay, now I should probably take the rest. And then I woke up and I realized, oh, this is absolutely useless. I should not have slept. But yeah, okay. Like it only really affects you like really towards the very end, right? When you're like level 95 plus or something, when you would maybe consider going like higher tiers and getting that plus 10 levels, slight XP boost basically. But yeah, in terms of like strategy, I guess it was pretty obvious. A lot of racers skipped Renown, but as I said earlier, like I actually did Renown. I did Renown 3 out of 5. I would have gone 5 out of 5 in all regions. I did 3 regions 5 out of 5, I mean. And I would have gone all, but like on EU at least, on launch, we had like a lot of server issues, and I could not go anywhere. I could not go into dungeons and stuff. I was just like randomly grinding stuff for like 2 hours, and I got 0 Renown, and I was slow as well. So I could not actually do that. Else I probably would have gone for full Renown. And I think that was definitely a good strategy, because one thing I noticed was that I was significantly faster than everyone else after I was in Torment and farming Nightmare Dungeons, because I had this extra power, partly from Renown, I think. Like everyone else was just missing those Paragon points, and I felt like I was just like clearing those dungeons faster, and I was like really far behind, like, you know, in the first 20 hours. But then once I was in Torment, once I defeated Elias and I was blasting, like there was nothing that could really stop me. And you can see that I was like constantly climbing up and up and up, and then eventually I was number 1 with like 2 levels ahead or something by the time I DC'd. And I think it was partly because of my strategy doing that Renown at the start.
I had it's like I wanted to ask a tricky question. Oh my gosh, Woody, tell us your secret. Why you are you were supposed to be, if not disconnect, I believe you would be again rank 1. Damn it, it's Renown.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, but yeah, I think the Renown is definitely a big contributor. Like I was kind of worried, especially going into this race, that we would be very weak, right? Because yeah, like everyone was talking about these stronghold strats, and there's a viable strategy to level up. But on the other hand, we had these nerfs, we had the loss of the armor gems, which then last minute, I guess we got the armor back from the hearts. But I expected we would be very weak. And especially on a hardcore race, I would say like you take all the power you can get just to speed up your progression. And even if you waste like, let's say, 5 hours doing Renown where you get like very little XP, you still get some XP and you still progress a bit, and then you are so much more powerful for like the next like 40 hours of the race that you just need to make up for like, I don't know, 10-15% of an like speed boost basically, right? And that is quite possible with 20 Paragon points, I believe. So this is why I did that.
Yeah, it's an interesting like mathematical optimization problem. Like, do you just blast ahead and just push the whole way, or do you stop and get the 5 of 5? Well, everyone agrees that you should at least get 3 of 5. You can't leave the 5 skill points on the table. I just got the 3 of 5 in all the zones, and I just went forward. And I think, yeah, as Woody alluded to, like some mistakes that I personally made that I will not make going forward in future seasons is I pretty much ignored the seasonal theme. I did not understand like how powerful the quest line was or the hearts actually were with like the barber and stuff until I was like almost in torment difficulty. And I think that a lot of people kind of slept on the power level and these different things. And if I would have done the seasonal theme earlier, I could have been even further ahead, and a lot safer. Another huge mistake that I made is I tried to do the first capstone dungeon way too early. It was a huge struggle. I went at like level 40 without very good gear at all, and I was doing it, but I actually aborted it in like the middle of it because I thought it was like costing me too much time. So just like a huge miscalculation. When Blizzard, if season 2 is extremely strong, and if the season theme is very strong, and they give you the density buff in Nightmare Dungeons, I think if I had to do it again, like in season 2, I would once again skip the level 5 Renown. Because I think if you're strong enough early on from the seasonal theme, you can definitely play World Tier 2 the whole way. And I think the number of hours that it takes to finish it will be a lot shorter. So then I think the time that it takes to get to level 5 Renown is going to hurt you further if the power increase and the density goes up. It's an interesting mathematical concept. I was kind of surprised because Woody did the 5 of 5 Renown. He was the person I was really watching. I got ahead because he DC'd. We were pretty much at the same level, and I did notice that Woody was definitely more powerful than me. He had like an entire half a Paragon board ahead of me, and it showed. Like his rogue was just stronger than me. So then I was wondering, I was like, damn, is he going to catch me? And then, of course, my hand breaks, and that's it. So I just raided him. I said, all right, go get him, Woody.
Real life disconnected.
I disconnected in real life, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I totally agree that, when they introduce more power creep and, you might not need those paragons, right? Like, I was kind of surprised by how powerful we are with those hearts and, especially with this last minute buff. Like, I was also not really ready to prepare for another strategy. Like, I was like weeks ago, basically, I already knew, okay, I was going to farm the 5 out of 5 Renown again, and I'm going to go race. And then, the stronghold strategies popped up, and I was like, nah, screw that, right? And then last minute, they buffed us with the extra armor, and I was like, damn, now basically everyone who was not going for the Renown strat is like way closer to my power, basically. Because, I was already going to be more powerful than everyone else, so it wouldn't really matter so much if I don't have the armor from the hearts and stuff like that. And so I kind of like lost there. And if they make the race even faster by buffing density and or maybe giving other XP buffs, yeah, of course, we're gonna get to like a point where just not doing Renown is the way for sure, for at least like the race. Yeah.
Another change that real quick, Echo, just a point on that. Another thing that I'm wondering, like they changed it, but I actually thought the other way was better. Like one thing that they did was good and one thing that they did was bad. So what it used to be is 3 levels higher than you get a bonus, and then every level after that, you don't get a higher bonus, but you just get higher base monster XP. So now they give you a bonus for 10 levels, and that philosophy I think is correct because it incentivizes you to try to do something difficult. But then they crucified the penalty for doing that, and I'm like, why did you do that? At least make it 2.5 to make it the same. It would still overall be a nerf. But I don't like, there's no incentive. People keep asking me, well, what tier should you do? I'm like, just do the tier at your level because the bonus for trying hard is so low. It doesn't make any sense. So if Blizzard changes both of those, we already know they're adding the density. And if they reward you for doing higher levels and the seasonal theme is powerful, now all of a sudden you get so much XP just by reaching Torment 4 quickly. I think the more changes like that happen and the balance changes that make builds stronger, I think every one of those changes makes Renown 5 early a worse strategy.
I think there's actually an even more impactful thing, which is just knowing which Nightmare Dungeon keys to do, like which sigils. So like, for example, towards the end of the race, if I got an Ulder's Cave that was only like a 43, versus like a 50, I would still do that. And it was still way better than doing like a Forgotten Ruins 50, for example, right? Yeah. So I think kind of going on the fly instead of like sitting in town and trying to craft a whole bunch of sigils, but going on the fly and just trying to pick out which keys are the best, regardless of their tier, just as long as they're a reasonable tier, is probably the strongest thing to do. The other thing, leveling 1 to 50, I did maybe something differently than the rest of you. Is I was actually sniping whispers that were dungeons. Those were things that I was prioritizing really high because you're like double dipping on the whisper reward and the renown reward. So and I think just in general, like anytime I could double dip on rewards, that's something that I would choose to do in general, just in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good point there with the double dip. I did that like a few times, but I wasn't like specifically seeking them out that much, I guess. That is like they buffed them like last minute as well, right? It was like in the patch notes that they buffed the whispers and stuff, but I didn't really notice like how much they buffed them and how much that was worth it. But
significantly was the wording, so we didn't even
yeah,
get
I mean that can mean anything, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know, like how long did it take you, Echo? That would be kind of interesting. I didn't actually like check like your race like at the start. Like, I guess you were like, still relatively slow and not doing stronghold strat, right? And also
yeah, I'm the speed of Necromancer, so I get no movement speed until I literally get it on my boots. So every O-Ball gamble was boots for movement speed. Every whisper chest was looking for movement speed. And as soon as I found movement speed, then, I am now moving okay, but there's no skill. There's no skill on the class. So I literally just move at base speed for like 50 levels, basically.
I remember when we were talking with EchoHack in the beginning of this race, his strategy was just not run. My strategy is just the move as less as possible till I see the quest, I see the enemies, I'm killing them here right now. I'm just not moving. That's important.
Yeah, kill on site, do every single event. Yeah, where you can have monster spawning that run to you. Don't run anywhere yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Any event, specifically for Necromancer, right? Any event where I can sit down and just deal damage without moving, I would optimize for that as well.
Yeah, but there's one point that you mentioned earlier with the 9 dungeon tiers. That's also something that I started doing, towards like level 80, level 85 plus or so, because there you could start feeling this nightmare dungeon change kick in, right, where the scaling is reduced and the difficulty is lower on higher tiers after tier 35. So this would correspond to roughly level 85 character level and up. It gets easier and easier going from tier to tier, basically. And I also started noticing that I would just not look at the tier anymore at some point, as long as the tier was minimum my own character level. And, even if the monsters were like +5, even +10, I would just not care. And I would just go in as long as it's a good dungeon and it has good affixes, or like I was trying to dodge stuff like, crit resist, or, these affixes that really slow you down. That was like definitely a way better strategy towards the end. But early on, I think the level differences made a lot of a difference. Like, when I was doing like tier 1 or tier 5, I could feel that when I was like fresh in Nightmare difficulty. Versus later on, like just +5 tiers, who cares, I think. So that's definitely kind of interesting how that changes later on. And they'll have more sigils to choose from.
I had the same observation. Like once I found a really good GG shield, and as soon as I found that, it was like early 80s, like 82, 83. I started doing +10s like very consistently. At one point, I even did like a +13, and it was a little spicy. So I was like, okay, maybe like 13 is too high, but yeah, it was surprising like that I was able to go from okay, well, like 5 is hot, 5 is a little spooky, but 13 maybe also a little spooky, but you could just do higher and it was fine. You just didn't care about the key level.
Guys, for hardcore players, oh my gosh, we got the patch 2 days before the season. I believe you all had the chance to test the dungeons, to see the new dungeons, nightmare dungeons, how they're working. You had no chances to test the hearts, which caused Rax, for example, ignoring the hearts, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of things you were just discovering during the race. Would you prefer? No, I believe you would prefer to have either the patch, actually to be able to play the patch earlier, or to have the PTR, to be able to do some testing. Or it was actually quite exciting to jump into the game. We don't know anything, but we're hardcore and we are trying to destroy, basically changing on the fly, discovering on the fly. Like, not from your personal feeling. I will give a chance. I will drop it to Chronix. How do you feel?
I feel like it basically both of the ideas are quite nice. I feel like when they're dropping it so close to the actual race, it's really interesting to see who can adapt the quickest, because I had my strategy well thought out in advance, which was involving strongholds, which I kind of deemed completely useless after the experience changes. So I had to figure out something new. I think if they drop it that close to the race, then it's highlighting a skill of adaptation, basically, who can adapt to the new changes the quickest, which kind of requires a lot of game knowledge and actually quite fast thinking when it comes to thinking out a strategy. But the PTR stuff would already maybe kill the mystery a little bit, and other games are already doing it. Like if people have access to the PTR, they have kind of like excluded from the races. So I don't think it would be the way to go, although it would be quite nice to actually have bug-free experiences and make sure that all the exploits like the Wrathful Heart farm could be basically killed before they are released. I think that would be really important. So I would prefer PTR over having people adapt very quickly and seeing their skill in that way, I guess.
It is exciting. It's absolutely exciting. It's again the situation where no one knows anything. What's actually coming, is making it kind of more fair. No, when we can, when again no one just knows what's coming, and have to immediately immediately discover a new strategy.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think releasing the patch with like no PTR is and making it exciting for people who race is maybe optimizing for the wrong thing. I think very few players actually like care about rank 1 on a leaderboard or that sort of thing, and people just kind of want to have fun. They do want to go hard, they do want to blast, but they're not necessarily like looking to compete or that sort of thing. So in that respect, I'm going with Chronix, right? Like I would prefer some sort of PTR to like suss out like some of the more buggy things in the game before a patch came out, and we can sacrifice the mystery on the altar of like maybe we don't introduce bugs into the game for the season.
Yeah, I wanted to say that as a gamer and as a racer, I think it's excellent that there's no PTR. It's so much fun. Like, it's exactly what Chronic said with like this adaptation and kind of like adjusting on the fly. And for example, like trying to actually figure out if the season theme would change your build or if you can actually farm that stuff or go into those tunnels. I've actually done that during the race. I went into the tunnels. I took like an hour of this like trying out those tunnels. And I was killing the boss a few times, and I was seeing if I can actually like work with that strategy, if I get something. And eventually, I actually got a barber, and that actually also helped me to speed up because I had that gem suddenly, and I put it in my ring, and I was just blasting. And I was like at that point, okay, now I've unlocked my final form. Now I go with 200 basically, and I was like absolutely, like blasting off basically, and that was really fun. So I really like that discovery aspect, and that everyone just kind of like starts the season with like no clue, and we kind of like discover it as a community. As a content creator, of course, PTRs are awesome. I can make 1,000 videos in advance instead of sleeping like 2 hours per night. But yeah, as a gamer, I love no PTR, to be honest. Even if it's a bit buggy.
That's fair. That's
Yeah,
actually
so
really,
for
really cool.
Yeah, so the person that I think I'm probably most aligned with is Echo Hack here. So I think you could do both things. I don't know why we can't do both. Why can't we test the game and have it be like a mystery? So one thing that I would hope Blizzard would do, and it doesn't need to be me, it doesn't need to be Woody, it doesn't need to be Anna or Chronix or Echo Hack. It doesn't need to be us testing it, but I think some kind of even a closed PTR and invite some people that, I don't know, are big mechanics people and maybe they don't care about racing. Let them test the game. Like people call out, there's so many bugs. The barber does so many bizarre interactions that Blizzard certainly didn't want to happen. And I think what Echo Hack said is correct. Like the health of the game, the longevity of the game is going to depend upon how the 95% casuals view the game. And when everything is bug free and feels good and everything works, I think that is more important than the race. And then like what Woody said, as a gamer, I would love don't know anything about it, start it and just everybody figure it out. That is far more enticing to me and all of the blasters. So I really don't understand why we can't have both. Why can't we have a closed PTR where it's actually tested and the bugs are fixed, and then you let the mystery of the season start and let everyone start blasting? I would try to get the best of both worlds here.
Yeah,
Kendra,
I think this
what
is
do you?
exactly how PoE does it as well. They have like this close PTR that's like usually a weekend before a league or something, and they have like some small circle of testers, and then you have like the patch comes out, the race starts, and no one knows anything, and there you go. So I think that's probably like the way to go, I guess.
But those people are excluded from the race, am I right?
Yeah, they're excluded, of course. Yeah, they're not allowed. But the racers obviously they don't participate in those PTRs, and
Yeah.
there's still like plenty of knowledgeable people that don't care about racing and all that, and they can help iron out those bugs.
Guys?
So real quick, so just like my final thought on this, like let's say they don't want to do that. Let's say that they don't do that and they have to make a choice. I think if the choice for Diablo 4, unfortunately, this is not what I would like. This doesn't increase my fun. I think you have to do the PTR because I think that helps the 95%, as Echo alluded to, and it ruins our fun a little bit. But I think for the health of the game, you run the PTR to fix the bugs and then release it.
Believe. Guys, We went so serious. We went like so serious with those questions. But now, I with my 1 year before, and when we were setting up this podcast, I heard something, and I was so surprised because I never thought about this. I heard how the boys were discussing their preparations for this race, and they were discussing that during the race you are preparing the meal. Yeah, you have the food, you have the drinks, but you have even the schedule when you are showering or you're not showering. It's amazing details that I need to know. But guys, what was your like overall life preparations for this race, and how did it went? Who went to shower? Who didn't went to shower? Rax, since the community always really wanna know what's under this hoodie. Come on.
I mean, if you're showering, you're not getting XP. So if you're actually going
Exactly.
for rank 1, that's out of the question. That's both funny and true. So there's no showering. You don't do that. My 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 particular strategy is very, very simple. I don't like Rob, for example. I know Rob actually meal preps everything for like the longer races. He takes it. I know some people that actually go to the doctor's office and get a physical before the season to confirm that they're healthy enough to play life-compromising hours. I have a very simple strategy. I just try to get some healthy little snacks, and actually the drink of choice I have is just water. I just try to drink as much water as possible. Obviously, you wear a diaper. We already talked about the bathroom being an XP loss, so you got to get one of those like really thick ones. But essentially, if you're not sitting at your chair getting XP, you are going to lose, and you're just going for first or nothing. So simple strategy, get some food that you can eat right here that's healthy, like some sliced fruits or some beef jerky or some popcorn or something. A ton of water, no bathroom breaks, no showering. That's completely out of the question.
I'm sorry, one remark here. The hoodie in which you spent this race, did you throw it away?
Absolutely not. We're gonna sell it on eBay for like $1 million.
Guys, your bets, please.
The value
in
of it
chat.
just skyrocketed.
Okay.
Can you send me the link?
Yeah, Rax is wearing some nano hoodie that is like, all the life-sustaining functions already built in or something.
Dude, that's the next, the IV connectors.
If he gets sleepy, it shocks him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can go next maybe in terms of preparation. My preparation was horrible, I gotta say. I was like sleep deprived for a week already. Like I didn't have like more than 4 hours of sleep a night, I think, because of all the craziness going on with patch and prep and some IRL stuff I had to do and Maxwell stuff I had to write and everything. So it was a miserable experience going into the race, and then just blasting for 28 hours straight. On the other hand, I had a lot of fun doing it, so there's that. I just had to like kind of power through. I did take a shower break. I did take bathroom breaks. So under like Rax, I actually value these kind of things.
Dude, I should have. If my hand didn't hurt, I would have beat him if he's taking showers.
Yes. So I blast hard without stopping when I need to, but I do take some of those breaks, and including food breaks. So it's not just popcorn on the side. I actually had like some real meals, mostly thanks to Nini preparing some nice stuff here and there, and I had some cookies hidden in a closet that only I had access to, so I could take those out in dire times. But outside of that, yeah, water, some nice food, and take some breaks. Obviously not many, and obviously not long ones, but I did have my shower at least.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place as Woody. I drink water. Water is my drink of choice, except at the very end I had a little bit of caffeine. But I do a big Costco run before the race. That's how I get my meal prep, is I just get whatever at Costco and check that out. And then the one thing I'm like not willing to compromise on is so I don't shower, but I do like always brush my teeth. Like not willing to compromise on the teeth brushing during the race. That's got to do that. And then
Oh yeah, true.
Not shower, it
I
is still
actually
disgusting.
I brushed my teeth
Don't
like
worry.
4 times on my first stream, I think. So
These guys are casuals, man. It's like 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there. Unreal.
yeah.
and then in terms of sleep, I'm like grandpa gamer compared to the rest of these guys here. But I did at one point I was going for number 2, and my brain just like would not let me continue. So I slept for 30 minutes, and that 30 minutes felt like a full night's rest of sleep after I woke up after that, and I was just ready to blast the end at that. So it's kind of weird. A little bit of sleep sometimes can go a long way, I think.
Yeah. Gronix,
Yeah,
what
for-
did you do?
For me, I usually when I do I'm like when I do stuff like this, I try to be as I don't know, like my competitive nature forces me to do this as perfectly as I can. So I actually meal prepped stuff. I actually prepped some snacks as well with some vegetables that I cut the night before. I put them all in the fridge so I could take them out. And yeah, I planned basically all the sleep stuff. And I actually didn't want to shower because now I know or now I learned from Rex that not only town is lava but also the bathroom is lava. So I gotta implement this into the next strat basically. And yeah, I was not calculating shower breaks, but I was just devastated at some points in the morning, so to say, which was like 2 p.m. my time, but it was my morning because I was awake for like 3 hours at that point. I was like KO and I needed a cold shower to actually be awake. And that one really helped, I do have to say. But since I am kind of new in the racing thing, I was always like pushing leaderboards. That was more of my thing. But in the racing thing, I really need to step up my game because I saw the guys blasting for 28 hours at like in one session, and I was not able to do this. I did like a 26-hour stream in the first time, but then after sleeping 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, I couldn't do more than like 18. It was not possible for me. I felt way too sleepy, and obviously with the nature of hardcore, you can't really. You actually have you need your eyes open to actually not die, right? And I couldn't go for more than that on the second and third day. It was not possible for me. So there's definitely a lot of optimization, and yeah, bathroom is lava.
Rax gonna send you the link for the diapers. It's okay, he has a discount there already. Wow, what a wonderful topic, guys. Well, who here, tak, raise your hands. Who remember Diablo 3 release here? Who was there? Who was playing hardcore? Guys, can you compare Diablo 3 release hardcore, Diablo 4 release live in hardcore mode? Are we? Where are we? Is it too easy? Is it? Oh, I know that Diablo 3 was quite interesting on release in terms of difficulty. Are we good? Are we good in Diablo 4? Was it better in Diablo 3?
I can talk a lot about that, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Woody, yeah, your question.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, when Diablo 3 came out, so I'll give a bit of background. I played only Demon Hunter for the longest time. So I cleared the game after like a few days on softcore, and then I started a hardcore Demon Hunter. And Demon Hunters were not the way to go in hardcore back at the time. It was, after Act 2, you were basically getting one-shot by everything. So my goal was to defeat Inferno hardcore. I was farming goblins for a while with some team. At some point, I died because I TP'd in when it was told it was safe, and it wasn't safe. And I died through the loading screen, basically, to a one-shot. That was unlucky. And then I quit the game for a month. But I had a Storm Shield in my stash. And back then, Storm Shield was the shit. And everyone was playing Barb on hardcore. And there was no Storm Shield on the entire EU server that could be bought from the auction house. I had the only one lying in my stash besides those that someone was using. So a month later, I came back, sold that Storm Shield for, I don't know, a huge amount of gold, and geared up my entire Demon Hunter, and I made a new Demon Hunter, and I blasted through the entire game. That was past, like, after the first nerf or something, and did it all in one go, in one day. That was great. After Crip had done, like, this original world first and stuff. But I did complete the hardcore there after the first nerf. That was cool. So that was my experience of original hardcore. D3. And I gotta say, it was really cool back then because it was so hard. And in Diablo 4, now the game is massively easier. Especially the game is more balanced, I think. Compared to what Diablo 3 was back then, Diablo 3 was an absolute mess when it came out in many ways in terms of balancing, in terms of the progression curve, that was basically non-existent, right? You just had like a brick wall in Act 2, and you had a double brick wall in Act 3, and that was it, basically. And in D4, I think it is really well done. Like how you progress 1 to 100, you always get stronger. You always have some new little decision to make if you build. You always have some new challenge to overcome. The progression curve is relatively nice, I feel, from start to finish. Plus minus a little bit depending on the class and the build, okay. But for the most part, I think it's very well done. Now, one thing that Diablo 4 has that Diablo 3 did not have on launch, besides the witch doctors, is a cheat death. And I think a cheat death in Diablo 4 is really taking away from the hardcore experience. I'm not sure if you want to go into this in more detail later, but the cheat death elixir is really what makes hardcore way less enjoyable than it could be in Diablo 4. Especially because Diablo 4 is such a much more balanced and much more well thought out game than Diablo 3 was. Yeah, originally they introduced them in Diablo 3 because Witch Doctor had a spirit vessel, and then they made it for all classes, and well, now everyone just doesn't like Diablo 3 hardcore, basically, because it's basically softcore. And we are kind of there now in Diablo 4 as well, and I will keep lobbying forever until they do it to remove that cheat death elixir, because I think that especially for people that seek out some extra challenge in Diablo 4, that should not exist. I think the game is totally fair in terms of hardcore. This is, it's absolutely not required, and it just takes away from the experience if you always have this cheat death. And even more so now, compared to the first race, on launch of Diablo 4, we did not have much access to this elixir of cheat death. It was dropping, the materials were dropping, but not very much. I used the elixir for maybe 10% of the time. But now, these monster parts drop all the time. You have perma elixir, even without the seasonal blessings that give you longer elixirs. I can literally go into the game now and craft 4 weeks of elixirs worth of cheat death elixirs, if I want to right now, without having farmed them at all actively. It's just stupid. Why is that a thing? If they just make it last 5 minutes, for one boss attempt or something, I would say, okay, if you do one uber little attempt with an elixir, that's okay. Or if you have this really hard dungeon, you pop the elixir, you rerun through that dungeon once, and then you don't have it for the next 20 dungeons, that's okay. But the fact that you have it all the time and there's no way to die besides DCing is just absolutely stupid. So that's my opinion on that whole thing.
When
Yeah,
I
so
first heard,
Yeah. Go ahead, Rex.
let me just, I will give you immediately the word. But it's just from my softcore world. When I first heard, but some rumors from hardcore, they're going to me also. But when I first heard that there are the cheat deaths, scrolls, potions, everything in hardcore, I was like, wait a moment, but this is cheating. What the hell? If you're going to hardcore, die there after all. But I also know, guys, I am a casual player, as 90%, if not more, of the player base of Diablo 4. Playing hardcore with a cheat death as a casual player, I will enjoy it. I will have, these wonderful moments that I'm saved. I was saved here. And then I will be disconnected and die. But I don't know. I am just dropping it to you as a thought that actually I truly believe that for the casual players, cheat deaths might be something that people are enjoying.
My opinion is there is a mode for casual players. It's called softcore. So why don't you play that?
Oh, please! I also want to go there one day and try something with hardcore. Anyway.
Yeah, so I couldn't possibly agree with Woody more. I don't think there's any harm in saying this. We a long time ago, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, we had a chance to test a very early version of the game and just give some feedback. And one thing that Woody and I were very adamant on was you should remove cheat deaths from the game entirely. I think my experience is exactly what Woody's is. I can craft 1 million potions, and I think it really takes away from the hardcore experience. I also completely agree with his comment about what Anna said. So earlier we said, well, really, you should design the game with casuals in mind. Whatever's going to help them, we should do that. I think this is an exception where this does not apply. Hardcore, in its nature, as Blizzard has created it, many eons ago, is supposed to be very, very difficult, and there's supposed to be a lot at stake pretty much all the time. So if you aren't willing to lose it all, then you need to play softcore, whether you're a blaster or a casual. I don't think we make an adjustment there. There's a lot of changes that they could consider with the scrolls. They could remove them completely from the game. They could make the mats drop way less often, so you would choose when to use them. Another option is you can only use it at level 100. Another option is you can only use it in Lilith's Lair or something like that. But I would be a extremely strong advocate of, in some way, whatever their game philosophy for the game is, I think you have to nerf it. I think you have to give hardcore more of its meaning back, because the current design of the game is really bringing it down.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement here with Rax and Woody. And in fact, I kind of want to talk about this topic for a little bit, because I'm, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit of a grandpa gamer. So you may not know this, but Diablo originally was inspired by games like Ongbad and like NetHack, these like 2D ASCII only games. And these are RPGs where you basically have one dungeon that has many layers, and then you get to the bottom layer, you kill the big boss, and that's the end of the game. And at the maximum, those games would last about 20 hours, and those games are always hardcore, right? There's no like softcore mode in those games, right? You die, you start over, right? So when you lose 20 hours of game time, I feel like that's maybe an acceptable level of game time to lose for spending another 20 hours to attempt to get to the end of the game again. But I think the equation changes a lot when it takes 150 hours or 70 hours or whatever it is to get to level 100 or something. And you have to have something there in order to sort of stymie that a little bit. So that said, in the current game, I do think the cheat death elixir is just way too, like, it's an automatic effect, and I don't like that. I think removing the cheat death elixir either entirely, or like Woody suggested, having it be like this really even more expensive, like way more expensive thing that only lasts like a few minutes, like 5 minutes or something like that. I think that would be okay for doing some of these like uber bosses and things like that. The scroll of escape, I think the drop rate on that could be brought down, but the scroll of escape doesn't particularly feel bad to me, because you can still get one shot by something, and it's still a skill shot to hit that scroll of escape, to understand that you're assessing the situation that you're going into, and you hit that button. And I'll explain why I think that's important is because of latency. The only time I hit a scroll of escape during my leveling was I hit like a 200 latency spike in Ullr's Cave at one point, and I just hit my scroll of escape instantly because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like maybe I was like starting to get disconnected or something like that. So I was using that as my disconnect protection. And so I really also like the plan that when you disconnect from the game, that they consume one of your scrolls of escape, because then you can't exploit like pulling your Ethernet cable out of your PC or something like that, right? You are using a resource in order to do that. So there's a cost associated with that. But yeah, I think the automatic nature of the elixir is a little too strong for what hardcore should be.
Chronix, how many times you used the scroll escape?
I actually used it the same way as Echo described it. Every time I have a leg spike, I I always have my latency up in the bottom left hand corner just to monitor it. And if it somehow feels laggy during a fight or a comment and I see it going up, I instantly press it. And I maybe had to press it like 3-4 times because German internet, and sometimes it's a little bit wonky. But I do have to, unfortunately, it's a little bit boring to agree to everybody, but I have to completely agree with everything that was said. I would be insanely fine. I mean, it makes it a little bit boring for the podcast, right? Like, but I have to agree with everyone what was said. I would be very okay with removing it completely between levels 1 to 100, not being able to craft it or consume it at all. But I think we need something. We need a possibility to try to progress Uber Lilith, for example. I don't think that anybody would be able to first try a boss like that in hardcore, right? And then we would have the problem of having to reroll to softcore to be able to practice the boss, or have somebody else do it on softcore first to actually have a look at the boss itself, try to remember all the patterns, and then try to be a god gamer and do it in one try. I mean, that's also quite a nice challenge, but then that probably means that hardcore bosses or hardcore Uber bosses are probably going to live quite a long time, right? When we remove it completely. So I think maybe remove it between 1 to 100 and only make it usable in like Lilith's lair or all the other Uber bosses to come, probably. I think that might be a good thing.
Yeah, hitting Control and R and putting the latency in the bottom left-hand corner, I think, is a thing that every hardcore player should do. The other thing I'll throw another pro tip in here. The other thing that I noticed is occasionally I would get my character would get loaded into like a nightmare dungeon that I don't know, like the server was like lagging or something. In that particular nightmare dungeon, like it just got scheduled on bad hardware, and the whole nightmare dungeon was laggy. I encountered this just like twice during the leveling process, where I would go into the nightmare dungeon, it was extremely laggy. I would leave, and then I would go back in, and it was still extremely laggy in the nightmare dungeon, but everywhere else was fine. So something that I do is right at the beginning of the nightmare dungeon, I actually evade dodge right at the beginning of the nightmare dungeon to see if my character rubber bands. And if my character rubber bands, then I know to be like extra cautious, and I get my finger a little closer to the scroll of escape. But that's my trick.
Yeah, I also sometimes when I walk and I feel like I check if I want to check if there is rubber band or any lag, I press the teleport button and instantly cancel it by right clicking to move. So I can see the delay between me pressing T and the character actually starting to use the teleport function, right? And then you can see how much the latency really is, right? And then
by teleport you mean shadow step?
No, I mean T, like the teleport to Kyowa.
Town
right?
portal. Okay,
yeah, the town portal, exactly. Like you T and right click, and then you see the delay between you pressing T and the actual cast bar starting up. You see how much basically latency there really is, how wonky it is at the moment. That's what I sometimes use to confirm if there's any lag or if it's now good again.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing to consider. Guys, what I know for sure here in front of me, there are 4 people who will say, we need social found mode, Diablo 4 100%, just add it. And I know that how I guess, it's supposed to work, that you are creating the character and you have your options: softcore, hardcore, solo self-found. Like you're checking the button, you're checking the box, and you're starting the game. You're solo self-found. You can't trade, you can't play with other people. You're amazing. Have your separate leaderboard when we're gonna have the leaderboard, I believe. But can you a little bit for us also explain how the Legion event's gonna work, how the world boss is gonna work, how any potential future those team interactions in the fields gonna work, and how it's supposed to be in the perfect solo self-found world, in this perfect solo self-found mode, if you like what you are developing the game, how it's supposed to work in your head.
If I was developing if I was developing the game, I would make solo self-found a flag that you could do on character creation. A, you would never be allowed to group up or party with anyone. B, you would never be allowed to trade with anyone. see, you would have your own separate stash from other characters and realms. From other realms, right? So like you could make another character in SSF, and they would be able to mule with each other, right? And then finally, I would change nothing else. Being able to interact with people in the world at events, being able to interact with the Gathering Horde events. I don't necessarily see that. I see those players as NPCs, and in a lot of cases, they're actually hampering my progress. I think I would have like a sorcerer come up to an event while I was killing the event, and I would do like a jar of souls, right? And I farmed the jar of souls so that I keep all the souls on the ground until the last second, and then the sorcerer will come in and just pick them up in the event 30 seconds earlier, and they just now that's an XP loss.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's me.
So
That's me. That was me. It was my sorcerer. Don't worry.
so like I don't necessarily view this as like a thing that would ruin solo self-found if you were able to interact with other players that way, because they're just NPCs to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with Echo, to be honest. I mean, calling others NPCs is a bit rude, yeah, but on the other hand, like it doesn't really matter if there's like random people running around at the world boss or at an event. Like who cares? What matters is that, you know, as like what we care about for SSF, for competition, is that you don't employ any of those group strategies that people are using, right? No group farming in dungeons, no sigil sharing, no teleporting all over the world. You know, you don't get fed with insane items and gold, so you can have like the perfect gear at level 70. You know, this is the stuff we care about, and it's exactly solved by all the solutions that Echo described. And on top of this, we don't need extra servers to make that happen, right? So we can't, of course, expect from Blizzard to make a server, an entire world server for every single person who wants to play an SSF character. That makes no sense whatsoever, right, economically. And we don't need it at all, because all of the problems that not having SSF causes can be solved in the way that Echo described. So I'm totally on board with all of that.
Yeah, so to add to this, I think so all the stuff that Echo laid out is exactly how I would do it. And then you have two different scenarios. You leave everything else the same, or you make it everything solo, you solo the Legion events, you solo the boss, they make a separate server, all of this crazy stuff. Historically, and this makes logical sense, it's probably true for just about every gaming company. If you want them to add a feature, the way to get them to add the feature is to make them do as little work as possible. I think the difference between seeing a couple people at a Legion event when you're playing solo and not seeing it is practically nothing. So it's like Echo said, if they're there, they don't really help. And if they're not there, it's the same thing. I think that is so much extra work to ask Blizzard to do that it doesn't make, as Woody said, economical sense. There is one more thing that I think you have to remove, and I think this has to be removed, is when you are near other players, you need to remove that buff. You get a buff just for being near other players, right? Because then you're going to get these weird strategies where two guys are playing SSF and they're overworld farming and following each other, and they get a buff like all the time. So that's another thing that you have to remove, because they're going to come up with some stupid strategy like that. But it doesn't make sense to ask them to do all that extra work for such a low, like, fantasy value of never seeing anyone ever. So I think the way that he laid it out and not changing the other things is the right way.
And now Chronic is saying, you know what, people? Actually, solo self-found is a bad idea.
No, that's not the case. Rex is actually reading my mind. I wanted to definitely highlight that there will be a team of 2 that play solo self-found that will be running around in the outer world or in Helltides, benefiting from the party buff and trying to gimp the leaderboards that way. So basically, when we would have the option for a check mark at the character selection screen, that check mark automatically disables the buff to the XP buff to nearby players. That's the connection that has to be done, because else you could kind of play the system a little bit, right? I don't know how effective that would be for a race, but there would be the possibility.
Yeah. Like to me, okay, well, I think it's definitely fair to disable the buff. I don't think it would really matter in any practical sense. Like you can't even get into the instance of a certain person because you can't group up with them and stuff like that. So you can't even do any kind of strategy around it. But it probably makes sense to remove the buff and just not have it apply, I guess.
Well, if Helltide will
Well,
have actually
well,
extra density, you will have the monsters
it,
that are level +3, and you are running there together with the other solo self-found person.
it's exactly that concept. It's like Woody's right. Right now, it would not help you. But what about in the future? Oh, season 3, they introduce an outdoor event, which is the best XP in the game. Now you have a problem,
Yeah. Yeah, I
Now
can
we have
see
a problem.
It's definitely something that if they ever do it, and this is just another thing on the list they need to do, and it doesn't really sound like a big deal to me. So, but yeah, who knows?
If doing it already, then doing it right from the very beginning, or
Yeah,
then in a couple of
exactly.
seasons, you may have those problems. Yeah, guys, I believe, I hope that eventually solo self-found mode will happen, because a lot of people want it, a lot of people need it. So let's hope so. Let's hope for the leaderboard, that the leaderboards will drop in season 3 with some new activity. God knows what it is, but we all are hoping with a new activity, where also the leaderboards will be for solo self-found mode. No, guys, but this is a dreams for the future. What's right now is ahead of us is in 2 days we're gonna have the patch. We're gonna have the buffs for sorceress, for barbarian. Guys, how do you think? What's there? And again, playing the developers here. If you would be a developer, how would you buff it? I know that Rax cried a little bit when he saw that Barbarian was so nerfed. Woody right now is playing Sorceress and enjoying the hell out of the Sorceress. How would you on the developer place would nerf? Whoa, what the hell I said? Would buff those classes? Rax.
Yeah, I think sorcerers and barbarians. Well, I guess to start with barbarian, the main problem to me that barbarian has is damage. A barbarian feels good to play once you get everything online. You're spamming your shouts. You have incredible mobility. You have more unstoppable than almost any class, except for maybe a druid. Barbarians in general feel good to play. They have just made so many bug fixes and they've nerfed so many of their builds so many times, and their uniques are so bad that barbarians just need to be able to do some damage and not have these 10 plus minute Uber Lilith fights when Necros can still kill him in 2 minutes. So that's going to be the thing I'm looking for barbarians is damage. Sorcerers have a defense problem, which has been largely solved by the last minute change with the season theme, as Woody was talking about earlier. They added a bunch of armor, so now sorcerers feel fine. And then there's the 20% suppression gem. Now all of a sudden they're playing fine. The thing for me for sorcerers is I always felt like I was doing so much work to get the same output as the other classes. On Necro, I throw a bone spear. The room is dead. On Druid, I throw a tornado. It homes on all the enemies. The whole room is dead. Now on Sorcerer, I got to get the Raiment and teleport in and Frost Nova and do a Shatter combo. And if one of the monsters got away, well, it's kind of hard. It's not that easy to deal with them. I feel like it's a lot more work for the same output. So if I think if the sorcerers get some defense and some quality of life on how they play their class, that will be a big win for them. And barbarians, I'm just looking for more damage.
Chronix?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for sorcerers is actually becoming a ranged class. I think by solving that problem of melee sorcs, or at least giving them a viable ranged build which doesn't rely on Frost Nova, or which doesn't rely on vulnerability from Frost Nova, would actually be quite nice. And I also think the Paragon boards could use a little bit of work. Maybe change some of the all res glyphs, or the all res clusters to some armor. But I think that isn't really that big of a deal anymore after we have gotten the armor on the heart, right? But for Barb, I'm not really that experienced for Barb, but for Sorceress, I actually looked a little bit into that, and I saw Woody kill the butcher that was running away from him, and I definitely see Rex's points from Sorks being very like APM heavy or actions per minute heavy and need to do a lot of stuff, while other classes basically just right click and kill stuff very easily. I think a ranged Sork would be probably something very good and refreshing for Sorks actually. But again, if you bind vulnerability to Frost Nova, then melee Sork is probably always going to happen or be the meta probably.
Yeah, I think I unfortunately haven't played Sork too much post launch, but I think for Barb, for me the biggest problems are in like the basic skills and how the class needs to use them way too much in the early game, and because of that, you end up with this. You end up not being able to deal enough damage, so you're sitting there just spamming lunge all the time, as opposed to spamming Hoda or having more Hoda or having whatever spender that you want to use. The other thing is that some of the other spenders seem a little bit underwhelming compared to Hoda, even now, even with the quote unquote Hoda nerf, at least in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's kind of Barb's main thing is people, your average player logs into Barbarian and they start leveling Barbarian. They're like, and if they've never played any other class, they're like, wow, this game is slow. And then they play Rogue and they go, wow, Barb is terrible, right? But of course, Barb comes online later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the early game, especially on Barb, needs to be solved a little bit. So there are ways to do that with just like more raw damage, more resource, etc. And I think that would be already fine. For the Sorks, personally, I would actually like to see just like cooldown improvements. Like they massively nerfed cooldown reduction across the board to make it less mandatory now. And that disproportionately affected sorcerers in particular, because you have like lots of combinations of cooldowns. And you try to stack like, plus 10 teleport or something and, go ham or so. And the same for Frost Nova. And you rely on these kind of tools to actually like play the class well, it seems, in most builds at least. So there's that. I think just like, nerfing cooldown reduction on a gear kind of opens up the design space for lower cooldowns across the board for all classes, but in particular Sork, in my opinion. And aside from this, I mean, there are some really terrible builds that we know, like, there's like we talk about it in the tier list meetings on Maxwell or so about, Fireball Sork is like F tier or so. Like I've never even seen anyone play Fireball. I have no idea like if that's a thing or not, right? Incinerate, like we don't even list that on the like it's even further down, right? So
I'm so sad.
I've never
sad.
heard of anyone try Incinerate. So there's this kind of stuff when like, well, yeah, that needs definitely clearly some work. I think right now, at least with the hearts giving armor, the Sork defenses seem fine. Like I'm playing a Sork now. I have no defenses in my build, really. Like I don't have ice armor, I don't have flame shield, and I'm feeling fine playing this on hardcore, at least up till like 75 now. And it feels good. So there's nothing really to worry about. I heard from people that it kind of like falls off a cliff later because lack of armor or so, but I cannot really see that happening right now. At least if you build a character correctly. So I'm not really too concerned about the current patch in terms of defenses. But yeah, in terms of like offense, I tried various things on a Sork and gotta say, a lot of things kind of feel not great in the early game. And when it comes to like also the new player experience or like the casual player experience, Sork has like a general problem with being very complicated, as Vax described. You have to press multiple buttons, you have to combine things, you have to figure out like, okay, what can you do with the enchantment slots? How can you make like some crazy combo work with lucky hits? And yeah, it is very interesting to build a Sork, to theory craft a Sork, and like try to figure out a build. But it's like, the most complicated class. It's probably more complicated than Druid even, trying to make a combo actually work. Some like you have to find those synergies, and you have to be like, super 5-head to actually like understand why something works and how it works compared to like Barb, me smash, and that's it. So this is probably like where I would start with Sorks, like buffing some of the really underused skills, maybe cooldown buffs, and outside of that, they actually seem kind of okay now, I gotta say. And for the Barb, yeah, the early game in particular, I'm not really sure if I agree that Barb really needs so much more damage. Okay, the little fight is a bit slow, but who really cares about the little fight, to be honest? As long as they can handle it, and the Barbs are like omega tanky, they are not like doing a Barb little fight just allows you like 20 times more mistakes than on any other class. So it's fine if the fight is a bit slower, I think. So yeah, there's that, I think.
Guys, a little note, please, chat, don't listen to Woody when Woody is saying that he is playing without the armor on hardcore on the sorceress. No one follow this. No one try to repeat this. This is not real things he's talking about. This is Woody gameplay, okay? Okay? This is... No one should try it.
Okay, it's kind of a fair point, of course. I'm not really representative here from like a general player's perspective, but it's not like you walk into a room and it's get like one shot blasted by something, That's what I mean. Like you still have tools, you still have ways to react. So it's not like, you have to like get in every single defensive tool you have and then you still get blasted off screen or something. So I don't think it's that bad as some people make it out to be.
Last moment armor buff was actually really, really good, on point. I'm actually about the Barbarian, guys. I played Barbarian before all of those patches in pre-season, and a little story, I don't like Barbarians. I just don't like it in any Diablo game. This is not my character, but I decided to play absolutely all of them, and I did enjoy it a lot in pre-season, and I didn't want to admit it at all. And right now, I'm not playing it. I'm waiting until it will be buffed back, because I don't want to mess with this early feeling of me starting liking the Barbarian. We're not gonna do anything. We will wait until something, the damage, early game, whatever there will be fixed, and everything will work actually really, really smooth. Only when Rax will approve, will say, okay, Barbarians are now good. I'm okay, we are creating. Now it's time. Whew, wonderful people. Don't want to torture you too much. I have kind of like the ultimate question, guys. Either you died already or you actually reached level 100 at this point. What's now? What is your ultimate goal right now? We have 3 months almost in the season. Echo. Damn it. Still learning. I'm still learning how to podcast properly.
All good. I think we just want to all go at the same time, right? That's why we're taking our time to.
Well, I can start with that. I have not reached 100. I decided to stop. No, I was stopped at 93. Now I'm leveling a sword and having a lot of fun with that. My plan for the season in general was to just level all of characters to 100 and try different builds, especially like some that are a bit off the typical path. So yeah, I was just like experimenting basically to get a feel for all of the classes in the current meta and just see like what I can cook up. So I always like making my own builds, and there we go. So right now I'm planning to do every class twice to 100 in the season. One of them will be a softcore rogue for PvP and everything else on hardcore. So this is my current goal here. So yeah, outside of that, I mean, right now they removed 9.9 and pushing effectively. So they nerfed everything like mega hard, and they're not going to give us a new push kind of mode until season 3. So there's not really much to do there. Maybe I'm going to try to do Lilith on every single class or something. That could be like a nice little challenge, but outside of that, we don't have anything. So it's just like leveling and, understanding everything, all the classes. That's like my target here.
Echo Hack.
So my goals are exactly the same thing. Level all 5 classes on hardcore, kill Lilith on all 5 of them, Nightmare Dungeon 100 on all of them. And then I'll have 10 level 100s on my account, and I can't wait to start deleting them for season 2. So if we do all of that, then I'll probably spend more time. I actually had more fun than I thought speed running the early game. I'd like to spend more time doing that and trying to optimize how exactly can you get 1 to 50 the fastest. in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't matter a lot in the race. It matters way more how you play 51 plus or whatever in the Nightmare Dungeons, because that's when you're getting all the XP. I don't know, but for some reason for me, it was pretty fun to practice that. So I'll probably do that a lot more if we get all those 5 done.
Yeah, I'll be doing the same thing, leveling all 5 classes to 100. I do focus a little bit more on the Necromancer, so I'm going to be working on making some very interesting builds there. I think this season the Necromancer just has some very, very interesting builds that just were not possible before. Things like Omnistorm and Infinimist and a number of other very sort of like builds that were sort of memes before, but now are actually like gameplay viable. And I think those are fun, even if they're not like Nightmare Dungeon 100 possible. It's still fun to run those particular builds. I am looking forward to getting into some of the other classes a little deeper as well, as I haven't played those post-launch yet. So I think that'll be a really interesting journey, and I'm hoping to make my own stuff along the way. Hopefully not look up too many Maxwell build guides, but I might lean on Northwar a little bit when it comes to Sork. But yeah, that's sort of my plan for the season.
And I am also kind of falling into the same place. I don't know if I can actually make it to 5 out of 5 classes to 100 basically, and or like all classes to 100 and kill Uber Lilith. I was eyeing the Omnistorm that Echo Hack made a video about. That one looked really interesting to me, so that one's definitely up next. After I finish the Rogue, I can't really leave or abandon the Rogue at like 87 in the graveyard. I need it to 100, kind of finish that thing, and then start probably Necro and Omnistorm and try to basically get a lot of experience for other classes, because I'm not quite sure how many more seasons Rogue is going to be on top of the meta, basically. I'm not even sure if it is on top of the meta at the moment, so I'm really looking forward to actually be a little bit more versatile when it comes to that, and not be only relying on one class for the races. So I kind of want to have more experience and have an easier switch when I need to in one of the seasons.
Guys, told you that it's the last question. Light, we're staying here all night. One last one. While I was listening to you, I actually thought about this. Do you think, because kind of from your answers, I have a feeling that you don't have that much things to do. Do you think that also, and it's kind of, I guess, really hard, but try to also think from a perspective from the major of the player base, like of the major of the player bases, the casual players. Do we have enough for what we're chasing? Is the game too easy right now? So because you can effectively reach level 100, you reached it in 3 days, but you can reach level 100 within a couple of weeks, I guess, relatively easy. And what are people supposed to chase during those three months? Rux.
I think if you asked the casual player base, which is what matters, the people here on this podcast, no matter how hard you make the game, I don't think we're ever gonna find the game hard. We're gonna get to max level no matter what. We're gonna do the things. So the way that I approach this question is, how would a casual player respond to this? If you ask a casual player, do you think it's easy to get 100? I think their answer would be no. So I wouldn't say that the game is, I don't think the problem is necessarily that the game is too quote unquote easy, but the second part that you brought up, I think the game essentially has an identity crisis in the end game, which people have talked about a million different times. What exactly do you do in the game? It's kind of like Woody said a little bit ago. Like, what exactly do? We kill Lilith. We kill Nightmare Dungeon 100, which you just nerfed 30 tiers, which is fine. And I think Blizzard is aware that the end game is certainly lacking a lot of content. Now, this is something you can never say. I'm going to say it. I'm going to lose half of my followers, and that's fine. You can't ever say anything good about the game, or you can't give Blizzard a pass on anything. Otherwise, you will be burned at the stake and drawn and quartered. But I think the amount of content in Diablo 4 compared to Diablo 3's launch, Path of Exile's launch, Lost Ark's launch overseas, Wolcen's launch, Torchlight's launch, in general, is usually a better base, and they have more content than the launches of a lot of those games. So I am not a person that expects them within 2 months to have this super complicated, amazing end game that's supposed to satiate us for 3 straight months. So it is a problem. They do need to fix it, but I am not angry at Blizzard for not solving this quickly. I think they said there's another game mode coming in season 3, which I think they kind of alluded to would be more of an end game system than what they have. So I'm eagerly awaiting that, and they need it, but I don't really hate Blizzard for it right now.
Yeah, I'm in much the same boat. I think the game right now it's got a good shell and a good like 1 to 70 experience, I would say. And as soon as you hit 75 or so, then you start wondering where like that in-game progression really is. And so, I think at some point in the future, having a thing to progress towards the end game would feel really good. In fact, one thing that felt really good this season, even though I skipped the whole story part of it, was the seasonal story that you did. There was a sort of a sense of progression there, and I didn't even really finish it until like level 30 or something. And that really carried sort of those first 30 levels and made them a lot more interesting than, say, just running around and doing the dungeons all over again. And it gave it a lot of flavor. So I wonder if they could further extend that like sense of progression with like some other mechanic, or have like eventually have the seasons have some mechanic that like sticks around, similar, not saying exactly the same, but similar to how like PoE does some things like that. But yeah, having some sort of like long term for the game would be, I think, really, really nice. As far as is the game too easy? I don't think so. Like overall, I do think there are like certain challenges in the game that are difficult, and I guess like what's clear to me after playing Diablo games for forever is that, based on the design of Nightmare Dungeons, that they're not really intended to be like the end-all be-all pushing mechanic, and that even Uber Lilith is more of like a Dark Souls kind of fight. So I think that Blizzard probably has a different vision here for like what the like end game push thing is supposed to be, rather than what we currently have. And it's hard to envision something that's not in the game, but that's how it feels to me, is like the thing that we're supposed to challenge ourselves with, like ultimately that's going to be really, really hard, like actually isn't even there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, for example, having done a few tier 100s pre-patch basically before they nerfed all the Nightmare Dungeons, I did it only on Rogue because that's what I had leveled, and I did it on 3 different builds, and it was really fun to like kind of like try to overcome that challenge, like once, twice, 3 times, like trying to figure out the build and what I will do. But in the end, it always came down to the same story, like, okay, try to like fight monsters one by one, CC them until they're dead, don't get hit any time ever, right? This was basically Nightmare Dungeon pushing. It was very slow, and it was a bit more of like a, I don't know, like a Splinter Cell game than anything. I felt like, just like sneaking around in the corner, trying to find that one guy, take him out, and then do that like 100 times until we reach the boss. Yeah, so that's basically how that worked. And yeah, that is obviously not exactly like this action RPG gameplay that we're looking for. And maybe, like, while I'm kind of unhappy to take out this potential challenge, this potential like benchmark for your build right now, where we don't have any replacement for it. Like, right? They just say, okay, in season 3, like literally in like half a year, there is something coming, but we already take this away from you. Well, I think this is kind of like a weird move. On the other hand, I guess they don't want us to kind of condition ourselves for this to be the standard of like how you play at the end game, right? That you should not be forced to like do that to have any kind of challenge. So maybe this is kind of the part of reason there, like yeah, at least like from their perspective, and they want to deliver us something way better than that, which I think they will. I have faith in them. And looking at, for example, D3's Great Rift system, how it has evolved, it has actually become like a really good like competitive system because of the development that it has received over time. And if they take a lot of features there with like potential timers, potentially like actually like faster combat than just like fighting monsters one by one, because there's certain objectives you have to do or certain, like constraints that don't allow you to go too slow and these kind of things, it would be a lot more interesting than T1 hard pushing was previously. So I don't think I would be particularly interested in pushing Nightmare Dungeons like in the current game in Diablo 4. And if they give us a new mode, that will definitely help to kind of bring like that kind of pushing experience from Diablo 3, which is something I have been doing like the last decade, right? I really love pushing in Diablo 3, but I did not like it that much in Diablo 4. And it's great that the developers actually see those problems and they promise to deliver us something better. So let's see.
Yeah, I think we or like players like that really want to go fast and are racing and that's their nature will always be bored at the end of the season or very early into a season. So there is not really, even if you give us 2 more content pieces, we will have them eaten and devoured after a month and we are bored. So that's the nature of how we play things. I think it's really important to have something really fun for the player base that fills these last 2 or like this fills the month 2 and 3 for them, and maybe even only month 3, because they even said themselves, I saw it on Twitter, that they're completely fine if you leave Diablo 4 for a month, for the last month of a season. And I think that is something quite healthy for the game. And my tip actually for the casual player base, if you so want to call it, if you run out of fun in softcore at like month 3, really give hardcore a try, because I'm really like as soon as I tried hardcore, it was immensely more fun to me. And I think maybe after you have seen the season and maybe you have after achieved all your softcore goals, maybe if you still wanna play Diablo at some point, maybe try out hardcore, because that basically is a new game, I feel like. And maybe you can breach that last month by at least dipping your toes into hardcore. I think that's a really good thing for now. But I'm definitely looking forward for the Greater Rift equivalent that we're going to get in D4, and I'm really curious which bosses those are going to be and why it is going to be Andariel.
I'm waiting. I'm also waiting on Daryl. Okay. Guys, that was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, if you wanna, I'm always giving in the end the chance. Guys, if you wanna drop something, if you like, but I wanted all this time, I wanted to say this about hardcore, about the solo self-found race, or about Diablo. You can obviously drop it. If not, I'm not gonna torture anyone. Yeah, guys, if everything is fine, it was a long day, then I will just say that you are absolutely magnificent. You're awesome. It's so nice to listen to the smart people. I'm waiting my moment, guys, when I will go hardcore. I will go hardcore also. One moment on Barbarian, when Rax will allow. Ugh. We will see.
We'll both make barbarians. We're gonna level 2-player. Barb. When you're ready, let me know.
It's gonna be very loud in that party, man. Many shouts.
Yeah.
I actually have one little question that kind of burns, that I really want to ask, and I kind of hope that everybody has a little bit, like 2 minutes more. And it's actually about what, like, since I am probably the least experienced when it comes to racing, I really wanted to know, like, if there is like one thing, either IRL or in game, that would help people to go fast? If you would have to give them that one tip,
I
which
know,
one
I
would it
know,
be?
I know, I know.
I know that Rex will now say that bathroom is also lava, right? But apart from that, maybe.
No, the ultimate tip is watch Woody. Step 1, open.
Open Woody stream. Okay, I have that open all the time when I'm racing, so that's already on
No,
my
you
plan.
see, but
then.
that's helpful, definitely. Can you guys advise something?
I would say, like, for me, like, no joke, the number one thing for racing is drink a lot of water. That's it. Like, if you drink a lot of water, you will feel good, and if you don't, you're gonna feel like crap, and you're just gonna perform bad. That's my hint. Drink a lot of water.
Watch my stream. What can I say?
Okay, I did it already for you, don't worry. Guys, the links will be in the description.
No, but on a more serious note, yeah, one racing tip I would say. I mean, what Rex said is definitely good. Like, be hydrated. I mean, this is no meme. Water is important. It just keeps you fresh. Also, water in your face is actually something I did multiple times when I was doing those 20-hour sessions or 30-hour or so. Like, just get up every few hours, like cold water in your face, everywhere, you know, and you're gonna feel much better. So that helps a lot. Just like not fall asleep because you don't want to like rip to closing your eyes. And other than that, yeah, nothing really. Like, I am like very much like very simple on these things, to be honest. So you can do it with simple means. You don't need like 20 energy drinks prepared and all that.
Facefoot is advising in chat. Get a tap of ice water and keep your feet in it.
Ooh,
That sounds quite scary.
that sounds smart.
Echo, how you survived this race? Do you have like something? Maybe.
Well, my biggest tip, everyone, is to make sure that you go to twitch.tv/echohack and absolutely annihilate that follow button. No,
I am dropping you the link, guys,
so,
in my chat.
The kind of the same thing, but the opposite of what Rax said. So, like, not drinking energy drinks is actually very good. Because the half-life of caffeine will give you these spiky, and sugar will give you these like spikes in terms of where you're going. And Diablo as a game is very like a flow state kind of game, right? We call that blasting, right? So when you're blasting, you're in this flow state, and you're gonna get very tired racing, and so you want to be in that flow state to the point where like the game is kind of playing itself. Right, and that's why I think energy drinks are actually bad, is because it kind of pulls you out of that flow state a little bit. And the other tip, the final tip that I'd give is movement speed on boots. It's one of the best things.
Yeah, and like this, no one of us is ever getting the sponsorship by Red Bull, guys. We tried, we failed.
Unlucky. Yeah.
Guys, oh, that was such an absolute pleasure. I am wishing you defeating Uber Lilith. What can I say? Not dying while defeating Uber Lilith. Woody remembering where is the button of Scroll of Escape.
I wonder how many more stupid ways of dying I can find. Yeah, we have many seasons to go.
Go to either, depends on your time, first of all, go to hell. Second of all, yeah, go chill, go sleep, and have absolutely amazing time. Thank you so much. Go to hell now.
Yeah,
Thanks for hosting us, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was fun. Thank you, guys.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Peace.
Having-